No problem. All right. Lisa, would you like to join the stage? Let's see if we can get you connected, and we're going to get into our guest speaker segment. So earlier we were trying to get her audio and video connected, and it just was not working for us. Let's see. Hey!
I'm back.
Well,
Yay.
don't touch anything.
Yay! I'm not touching anything. Great.
All right. Awesome. Well, glad that we were able to figure that out. Thanks, Lisa, again for joining us. And then I'm looking forward to chatting with you. And if anybody does have any questions for Lisa, feel free to add them into the chat and we'll get to those as well. So first of all, Lisa, I want to start off if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and your cybersecurity role with Ford.
Certainly. So yeah, I've been with Ford for 32 years. I started out as a Ford college graduate, which means basically I did few rotational positions first before settling into any one position, which was nice as a new hire because Ford is such a big company. It's nice to be able to see the different areas first before settling down. So I did a stint in chassis and in driver information and several other areas. And then I settled in security subsystems, where I became the technical specialist in physical security and convenience products, such as alarms, locking, remote keyless entry type stuff. In 2009, 2010 around is when I became the corporate security attribute leader. And that's when I started getting my feet wet in cybersecurity. There was already a cybersecurity well underway within the IT area at that time, working on the sync infotainment and the modems and the enterprise-wide computing, but I was addressing it for the rest of the product areas within the company at that time. 2014, and also at that time, 2009, 2010, is when I started my stint with SAE. They were just setting up their first cybersecurity committee, so I was one of their founding members at that time. And then in 2014, I then moved solely into a cybersecurity role and started out within the research development area, then moved over into the current product development area. And my responsibilities were to do exactly what 21434 is touting to do, is to integrate cybersecurity requirements and processes into the company and into all of our products. So that was what my responsibility was. I started out with just me, and I was hiring, got up to 50 people in my department. Obviously, it was very hard because it's a demanding field, and everyone was looking for cybersecurity people, so they were few and far between. I would say that my team was very diverse because they had people for different backgrounds. They had from testing to computer science to electrical engineering to mathematics, as well as ethnicity. I had every ethnicity possible within my team as well. And surprisingly enough, it's Women's History Month. Probably 25% of my employees were women, which was a nice and unusual to see. Throughout my career, I'd have to say a lot of times I was the only woman in my department. So really nice to see that the women were interested in cybersecurity. With regard to, so that's what I did within the company. Outside the company, obviously, I released J3061 and ISO SAE 21434. I was part of the Auto ISAC. I was a program committee member of the US SCAR conference, and I was in a lot of conference and journal board members teams. And then as far as STEM, I was involved with the Cyber Auto Challenge, which catered to high school and college students to teach them ethical hacking. And then I helped out with the Women in IT technology and doing promoting cybersecurity with the Girl Scouts, with seniors and others. And then I also helped with the Detroit mayor, trying to do some brainstorming sessions on how to train the inner residents of Detroit to try and get some IT work into the IT workforce. So that's me in a nutshell.
Seems like you've done quite a bit. So thanks for joining us. And then it is really great to hear about the women that you've been able to bring in and help grow in the area too. So know that we appreciate that. And then you actually had mentioned, the next question I was going to ask was how you got involved with the cybersecurity committee, but you already mentioned that, as well as when you were talking about SAE, when we developed the committee, you were one of the first ones to join. So actually why did you seek out, or how did that come about, was coming with the SAE the Vehicle Cybersecurity Systems Committee? And then also, what do you love most about participating in standards development? It seems like obviously something, because you're still retired and participating with us, right? So you
Yep,
must enjoy something about it.
I absolutely enjoyed it all. It was a very fun, exciting field. Yeah, so when I joined SAE back in 2009, 2010, it took us a few years to actually figure out what we wanted to work on. But when we finally came up with our agenda, we came up with 3 different specific topics to work on. One was developing a hardware security committee, which then ended up producing the J3101 hardware security standard. There was my committee, which was the Vehicle Systems Cybersecurity Committee, which then produced the J3061, which is the guidelines for cyber physical vehicle systems, which then later reinvented itself into a new committee of people to then develop the 21434 standard. And then finally, the third activity that came out of that initial cybersecurity group was we had a committee that was run to just talk about cybersecurity issues, incidents that happen in the field, invite guest speakers in to talk about their research, about their technology and stuff like that. And I think that all 3 of those initiatives produced items that were very beneficial to the automotive industry. So that's how I got started, and then how we became, joined forces with ISO was after SAE J3061 was released, which was in January of 2016. We decided that we want to continue working on it to make the standard more quantifiable. It was a best practice before. We wanted to make more requirements-based standard. So we were going to continue working on it. At the same time, we understood that ISO initiated a cybersecurity standard to be produced. When we looked at their goals and objectives, it looked like it was identical to what we were already doing. So we contacted each other and decided that it was best to try to join forces in creating one instead of creating 2 different standards that may have different terminology and stuff. So I would say that it was in September of 2016, a PSDO agreement was signed between SAE and ISO to allow joint standard development to happen, and that's how this got started. 21434 was the first standard to get released as part of that joint effort, and I think soon after the J3016 got released, which is the taxonomy and terms and definitions for autonomous vehicles got released. And then there's more initiatives that are going on as well. One for sure is still the continuation of 21434, the concepts of the CAL and TAF, which is the cybersecurity assurance levels, which is similar to the ISO 26262 ASILs. That concept is still being developed jointly as a team, and the target attack feasibility concepts. So there's more work being done in that joint space that I think is a wonderful, wonderful activity to be involved in.
Well, you actually went through and answered my next question too, so
Oh,
thank you.
okay.
No, it was perfect. In terms of, it was talking about kind of like how the committee came together, the 2 joint committees, and then also the future of the joint committees too. So thank you. I mean, perfect. And then I guess in terms of the collaboration of the 2 groups, so like you said, the 21434 was one of the first ones, and then we did do J3016 as well as the collab standard. Can you speak to the benefits of collaborative standards and the joint committees together? And then also, like, what did you learn from that experience of working together? Because I know there were, obviously more experts involved, more insights from others. So can you speak on that?
Certainly. Yeah, so yeah, it was the first time, like I said, it was a joint committee. By joining the 2 forces, obviously the committee size grew tremendously from when I worked on the J3061 to the 21434. It was magnitudes larger. So it was great from a perspective of more technical expertise coming into the decisions and how we, into content development and stuff like that. Certainly, the more people you have, the better the solution, the more efficient it is, and the more accepting in the industry it will become by having their involvement. Obviously, by having a larger team of people to work with too was kind of tough, and gaining consensus on controversial topics because there were so many people to have to get their approval for. So you learned a little patience, but we got there. We were able to accomplish quite a bit in the 21434. However, there were still some areas, like I said, the Cal and TAF concepts that we couldn't gain consensus on and needs really further development in it before it gets released out into the public. But lessons learned were several. I think that it was virtual versus face-to-face. Let me just start there. J3061, you could certainly get things done virtually the entire time. That was completely released under a virtual environment for over 3 years. The 21434, though, we tried to do a lot more face-to-face meetings, which I think is really nice because you can have much deeper discussions. You can, all the people who are present are paying attention and are committed. And there's more, I guess, feeling of obligation to get the work done that you said that you were going to try and get done. So from that aspect, that's nice. From an organization standpoint, because we were the first committee to do a joint development, obviously we went through kind of a learning curve. We had to figure out how we were going to vote, what our vetoing strategy was, what the schedule was going to look like, what the paper formatting is going to look like, because obviously you got two different organizations that do things differently. So we had to, work through all of those details as a committee that now would be nice that if those were all laid out in rules on how it's going to be done, then the next joint committees can run that much faster and they can just concentrate on the work that they have to get done. And then finally, the other lessons learned was we found that it was nice to have equal leadership between SAE and ISO so that no group overruled any other group during the decision making and voting. So those are some of those. I guess I don't know if I missed any other question you asked in there.
No, that was perfect, because I was also part of trying to figure out the collaboration between the two as well, with, the document structure and all those. So I definitely was able to experience some of those, the collab pieces too. One of the other things is, so I do know that this standard stemmed from, our J standard, J3061. So it's as a ground vehicle standard, but can this standard be applied across other industries as well? So the aerospace industry?
Certainly, most certainly. Yeah, I would say that, certainly the purpose of us creating the standard was for the automotive space, but the concepts, the framework, the cybersecurity engineering discipline is really applicable to any electrical system, whether it's aerospace or automotive or whatever. It's really just making sure that your company has governance, they have rules and policies and strategies already defined, they have the management in place to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're developing the requirements, good, robust cybersecurity requirements and processes and integrating them into their product development process to make sure and that from concept through all the way through decommissioning, to make sure that their products are robust, regardless what the product is, whether it's automotive or aerospace or whatever. It all applies. So absolutely, our standard could be used elsewhere.
Great, thank you for that. And then Tom actually does have a question for us through the chat. So, do the SAE documents discuss shop/factory floor cybersecurity, not just the network cybersecurity?
Yeah, no, I would say no, they don't do the manufacturing plants. They do talk about that you have to take into consideration manufacturing. You do have to take into consideration the IT back end, but our 2 and 434 really concentrated on defining requirements and processes and governance for the product themselves, and not the back-end systems and not the manufacturing floors. There are already standards out there for the back-end, IT back-end systems and for manufacturing. So no, it didn't cover those.
Thank you. And then I'd like to shift away just from the application of the standard to the professional development courses that occupy the standard. So why are these types of courses important to anyone that's applying and are working with ISO SAE 21434?
So I think that those courses are helpful to allow anybody who's new to the standard to understand what the concepts and the processes and the terminology is within that standard. Some people may be a little anxious when they first see it. It's a big, it's a big, long, complete document. So if they're not that familiar, what I found in industry is that there's varying levels of cybersecurity maturity within the industry. Not everyone is at the same level. So it's nice to be able to have these courses to go to be able to get familiar with the concepts, the terminology, and to better understand what the requirements are really true, what the expectations are for each of those things. And I think those courses help you understand that. There's breakout sessions to be able to work through examples in each of the different areas of the standard to be able to help everybody understand what's expected. And I know that you do get a copy of the material after the course is over. You do get some sample templates to use, and you get the contact names of the instructors, which the instructors were members of the team who developed the 2 and 434 standard itself.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. So I think that's all I had for you. I don't know if don't see any other questions in the chat. So thanks again for joining us. And I'm glad that we were able to figure out our difficulties and get you on here to be able to share some of your insights and knowledge with us. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Glad it worked too.
Yeah, thank you both so much. I really appreciate it. That was a fantastic overview. And I did share out all of the various SAE resources are available in the slide deck if you download it in the handouts, and it's also available in the action button that I pushed out. Lisa and Beth Ellen will be on for the rest of the webinar, so if any questions do come up, we'll be able to pull those out of the chat. But thank you both so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks you.
Thank you.